Hello everyone, hope you guys are having an excellent Sunday, but even if you are not, it's gonna get much better. We have the first classical game we are going to show from the Freestyle Chess G.O.A.T Challenge 2024, Alireza Firouzja with white against Magnus Carlsen with black, and 2 days of the preliminaries have finished. It was played in a rapid time format, and Vidit also asked on Twitter what was the point of playing the preliminaries if it doesn't really matter. Everyone from the preliminaries qualifies for the main event. So the reason they played it is basically just to see who plays who, as it is a knockout event in the main event. So here, as you can see, Alireza finished fourth, Magnus finished fifth in the preliminaries. So that means they are playing each other. Norbek, who finished first, is playing Dink, who finished last. Vincent, who finished second, is playing Levon, who finished seventh, and Fabi, who finished third, is playing Gukesh, who finished sixth. So basically, that's the only reason they had the preliminaries, and also 2 extra days for us to enjoy chess. And also something I've been thinking about is that as this is chess 960, there is no opening theory unless someone is able to learn opening theory about all 960 chess positions that are possible. Who has the advantage? Is it a white still who has the first move, or is it black? Since there is no opening advantage, maybe white can make a mistake on the first move. Of course, players do get to study the position a little bit before every game, but it's still not the same as actually knowing the top move recommended by the engine regarding the opening theory. And I don't know if I don't think they're allowed to use the engine to prepare for the games, and the positions are not known before they actually come to the playing hall. So it could even be black who has the advantage, as white might ruin his position first. But okay, definitely something to be discussed. I'm very interested in what you guys think about that. So let's check out the game. Alireza has the white pieces, and he opens with e4, much like you would in normal chess. E5, and now pawn to b4. Now it makes sense even more than in regular chess, as there's already a rook on b1, and Magnus does the same, pawn to b5. And now Alireza plays knight to h3. He wants to have support for the advancement of the f-pawn. Plus, if you put the knight on f3, then something like d6 and f4 could be very annoying with the knight stuck on f3. Here, after knight to h3, Magnus spent some 22 minutes, and he played knight c to e7. Now he has additional support for d5 or f5, and Alireza replies by also spending almost 20 minutes, and he plays pawn to f4. So much like you would have in a nice king's gambit, e captures on f4, and now he just castles kingside. We have knight to g6 by Magnus, now defending that f4 pawn like you would in that weird line of the king's gambit, and the d3. We have bishop to f6, countering the bishop on a1, and Alireza trades. We have bishop captures, knight captures, and now knight captures on f4. So queen to e5, Magnus puts pressure on the knight on f4, and now queen to g3, adding a defender. And now Magnus could just trade everything. For example, knight captures on f4, queen captures, rook captures, and then play something like d6 or rook to b6 or castles kingside, or a6, just defend that b5 pawn, and the game continues. But he decided to go for rook to e8 first, and he invites Alireza to capture on g6. So Alireza does. Knight captures on g6, h captures, and queen captures on e5. Rook captures on e5, and now rook to b3. Alireza says your c and a pawns are weak, and I'm gonna tag them now with rook a3 and rook to c3. And okay, Magnus plays a6. You wanna keep the b5 pawn safe, and also you will be able to defend the pawn with bishop to b7. And Alireza starts creating weaknesses in Magnus's king side. Rook a3. He goes after the a6 pawn, and okay, you could defend with rook to e6, but the knight is coming to b3, then to c5 will put pressure on the rook and on the a6 pawn. So Magnus decides to go bishop to b7 instead, and now rook to c3. So only now going after the c7 pawn, and you could play pawn to c6, but then it's just your bishop really becomes a pawn, and once the knight lands on c5, it's just gonna be a one-way position for Alireza. So after rook to c3, Magnus goes knight to e8. He defends the pawn and, tries to keep this diagonal open as long as possible. He wants to strike with pawn to f5. And now knight to b3. The knight is coming to c5 and will put more pressure on that a6 pawn. So Magnus castles, and now knight to c5, threatening knight captures on e7, on d7 with a nice fork here. So bishop to c8 defending, also nicely controlling this knight, also defending the pawns, and rook to a3. Now with a double attack on the pawn, and there is no way to defend it. You don't have rook to e6 as the knight is covering that square. So okay, knight to f6, and now knight captures on a6. Alireza wins a pawn, bishop captures on a6, rook captures, and pawn to d5. So now Magnus has to look for counterplay. He's down a pawn, and he has a knight versus bishop. So he has to play a tactical open game. E captures on d5. We have knight captures, and now pawn to a3. And this position reminded me, as I've told you, I don't know in what video, maybe 2 months ago, that I had lunch with Alireza in Zagreb, and I asked him what's it like to play Magnus, and he said it's pretty much like playing anyone else, only he plays better moves, and you have to beat, if you want to beat him, you have to beat him at least twice. It's not enough to beat him once, because okay, you could consider this the first victory of the game. You've taken a pawn, but now it's time to to beat him the second time, and the second time he's well, almost even more powerful. So like if you were playing Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, you have to beat every boss twice. But okay, after a3 we have knight to e3, putting pressure on the rook, the bishop, and the pawn here, and the rook to e1. Magnus doubles up on the e file, and now rook to c6, all adding a defender here, but also going after the c7 pawn. Knight captures on d1, so now you have to recapture on d1, and now rook 8 to e7, guarding the pawn on c7. We have rook to d2, and now pawn to g5. We have pawn to h3, and now rook to f5. Also maybe interested in bringing the rooks over to e1 and f1, pawn to d4, and now rook to e1 with check, king to h2, and the rook f to f1. So okay, luckily the white king still has an escape, square on g3, rook to c3, and now Magnus strikes with pawn to f5. And now the problem is, if you strike with pawn to f4, the g3 square no longer becomes available, and rook to h1 will be checkmate. So Magnus is definitely trying to checkmate Alireza here, or trying to get him to defend, have a passive position, and then that will be compensation enough for him being down a pawn. But Alireza goes king to g3. He doesn't mind pawn to f4 check, because then king g4, and you cannot defend the pawn. It's now white who is pushing. So after king g3, Magnus goes king to h7, and now rook to f2. Of course, he wants to get rid of one of the rooks. With Magnus having them, his position is too strong. Pawn to f4 with check. We have king to f3, only move, of course, because the rook is hanging. And now rook to g1. We have king to g4 now, and king to h6. We have rook captures on c7. Alireza wins a second pawn, and now we have rook to e3 by Magnus, hoping to get that rook to g3 checkmate in. So king to f5, well, not checkmate, check, as the king does have the f5 square for him. And now what can Alireza play? Well, he plays rook g to e1, and this is Magnus plays rook g to e1, and this is a problem. The only way to continue playing this position was to deliver this g6 move with check, and then once the king moves, okay, you can go after the king. But here he played rook g to e1, and now Alireza's position is completely winning, but you have to find the correct idea, as only one move is winning for Alireza. So feel free to pause the video and take down Magnus Carlsen in a classical chess 960 setting while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing that this pawn cannot be defended. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to c6 with check. That is the only way to defend. And after king to h5, Alireza played rook to g6, and he was in this position on move 37 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He finished the game with 30 seconds on the clock. Alireza had some 4 minutes, and there is absolutely nothing you can do here. There's no check that you can give. There's no nothing. I mean, you're already up 2 pawns. You're gonna win this one. You're gonna win this one. and that's pretty much it. There's nothing even to try here. And as soon as Alireza played this rook to g6 move, well, he could have resigned on rook to c6 check, but he waited for rook to g6 before he shook Alireza's hand. So Alireza takes down Magnus in the first classical game, but this is a best of 2, so they will play one more classical game before deciding who wins the quarterfinals and who will go into the semifinals of the Freestyle Chess Go Challenge 2024. So really an instructive game by Alireza, not one you can use at better your game. I mean, you can use the idea, but not the actual opening. This is chess 960. But yeah, very nicely done. Magnus didn't want to go for that early trade, so he wanted to create an unbalanced position. But it was Alireza who came up on top from that disbalance. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank David Vance, Peter Albert, Robert Tarleton, Doug Repka, and Baby Solomon, and David Gasparian for my contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And do use hashtag suggestion if you would like to see any other games from the event. See you soon.